What's up, everybody? My name is Emorja, and we are about to get ready to start our Ancestry DNA episode. And I want to do this because not only because is it Black History Month, but there are so many important things about the Black community that I think would help us if we were to just sort of share some of our experiences and discuss what it's like being Black. You know, the secrets, the good, the bad, the ugly, but just I want this to be a place where we can share some things with you, so that way you can probably have the, I guess, have the inspiration to maybe find out some things on your own as well too. So, needless to say, there is no script, but we're going to just share with you with what we're comfortable with sharing. So my name is Emorja Roberson. Of course, I'm the host. We have Mr. A. Jeffrey LaValley. We have Ms. Erika Young and Errin Colvin. And you can, and I don't know if they're twins or not, but we'll find out in a second. And we have Daniel Rich. We have Mr. Tony McNeil, and we have Ms. Tina Carter as well too. So how is everybody doing tonight?
Doing
Doing
well,
well,
doing well.
doing
Okay.
good. Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm glad that you all were able to. I'm glad you accepted the call because I know, as we've been out to the audiences, so these things can be emotionally draining at times, and it also can be physically draining. But we're willing to take that chance. We're going to take that jump tonight. So yeah. So let me sort of just jump in and go for it. So let's see who will we go for, who will go first. So Mr. Jeffrey LaValley, you have a different story compared to all of us. So your family found you. So I'll let you take it away. How'd it
Yeah,
happen?
thank you. My family found me. I had been looking, and Jared Sawyers had found my grandparents' wedding license and had forwarded that to me. And of course, I'd been looking and I checked on Ancestry and other sites, and nothing would ever come up. And then last January, January 12th, 2020, I got an inbox from this guy named Mike Lavelle. And he sent me a picture of his dad's 100th birthday celebration. And I thought, oh, this is nice. Now, who are you? You know, I had no idea who this guy was. And he said, well, I don't know if we're family or not. I'm just sending this to you to make this connection. So, well, okay, I doubt very seriously if we are family because our names are spelled differently, whatever. But I come to find out that his father was my dad's first cousin. Um, and I never met them, never knew them. As a matter of fact, I thought I was the oldest and only male LaValley left living. That's how my family was. My dad's been dead since 1958. His dad and my dad were born the same year, 1920. And we went on and we talked about some things. His grandfather's name, his granddad's name was Walker. Well, his granddad was my Uncle Walker. And I'm like, no, this can't be real. Nothing like this ever happens to me. And we talked about some things. They're from St. Louis. Well, my dad was from Marston, Missouri. Well, their dad was from Marston, Missouri. He was born there. You know, things just started adding up. And I said, well, okay, this ought to really tell me. Did your father own a confectionery in St. Louis? They said, yeah, it was on the corner, and he got killed trying to protect his wife and his kids from being robbed. And he said, I told him, that was my Uncle Walker. And that's how we found out we were family. And they were having a 100th birthday celebration for him that next week. So they asked me if I would come, and I went. I wanted to see what I had missed all those years, you know. And I'm the second oldest LaValley because they have one brother that's a couple of years older than I am. But all of this came through social media, and people are talking about the ins and outs, of the goods and the bads of social media. This is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me because I had no idea that there was any family even living on my father's side. Not only that, I spent a lot of time in St. Louis, and they literally lived 6 blocks from where I would stay when I went to St. Louis. So I mean, all of this just came together at one time in a week's time. It's
Man,
unbelievable.
that's wild. And it's interesting. So, being that they found you, I wonder how they felt, because sometimes whenever you're searching, like, you see all these records and you don't know if they're true or not. Some people have the same last name, some people have the same first name. There are misspellings, and there are so many things that could be wrong. But whenever they took that chance, it seems like you were all for it, because sometimes people can be very reluctant to even take that I guess to take that grab, and it's like,
Right.
do I really want to do that? Um, wow. And so, as far as I remember, you put the picture up there. And so, have you all like been in touch? Have been keeping in touch
Oh
since
yeah,
then?
we
Okay.
we stay in touch, and his dad had dropped the Y off his name, which is one of the reasons I couldn't find them on Ancestry. They had changed the spelling of their last name, so I could. That's why they weren't locatable. And one of the younger generations kept telling them, "I think this guy is related to you all. You need to reach out to him." His
Mm-hmm.
name was Stansfield Thomas. He kept telling them, "Mom, Dad, y'all need to reach out to this guy. I really believe he's in our family." And they finally took the opportunity, the chance to do so. And yeah, we still talk. We still connected. They had no idea what I did for a living. I had no idea what they did for a living.
Yeah.
But in 3 days, we all found out everybody. So it was wonderful. And it was really, really odd, because I started one of the sisters that lived next door to their father had a piano. And they said, "Oh, I really wish we
See,
had somebody
right
here
up
that
your
could play a
alley.
piano." I said, "I play, I can play a piano." They said, "Oh, come on, you can't play the piano." I said, "Okay,
Gosh, that
let's
is
go over."
crazy.
So I went over and I started playing, of course, Revelation 19:1. And
Yes,
my cousin
yes.
said, "Wow, that's my favorite song. How do you know that?" I told him, "Because I wrote it." So a lot of things just came out at the spur of the moment. It's a weekend I will never forget.
Yeah.
I will never forget. And now his wife was a little skeptical, but the thing that brought her around was at the birthday party celebration. We had remarks, and he was standing there, and he looked just like my grandfather. I mean, just like my grandfather. My grandfather was 104 when he died. So, and this guy was 100. So, and he looked identical. I mean, identical. You could see it. And they saw me in themselves. So it was, I've now become the family historian. They ask me all the questions because I know more about the LaValley side of the family
Right.
than they did. They didn't know my uncles. They didn't know. I mean, there was no connection at all once my father died.
Wow. So all of those years, there was okay.
No connection.
Jeez, I've always wondered, like, why last names? Like, why do they drop a letter off? Like, yeah, because I know I've heard that before. For example, with Daniels, some people would drop the S off and just leave it as Daniel. Um, yeah, I'll tell you my story. We'll get to my story later on too. So, listen, I appreciate it. If only they knew what they know now, that they have a legend in the family. Like, that's crazy. I love it. All right. And I'm sure we'll get some questions soon too. So thank you. So I'm gonna go to the twins for a little bit. All right. So I'm gonna go with Erika first, and she's the oldest.
Here you go.
All right. About 7 minutes. So I'm gonna let you two tell your story together. However you feel comfortable telling. I'm gonna just let you go.
Sure. So, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I think it's so important that we in the Black community start to really share things that we've been through in our lives, because that's how others heal. I always believe that we don't go through anything for ourselves. We go through it because it tells a story that you can get through it too. So the ancestor that we were looking for was our father. Um, and this is a long story, but I'm going to make it as short as possible, honestly, because it goes back many years. But the long story short is we were probably about a year and a half old. I mean, we were babies basically when my dad left. And we just didn't have that connection with him. We never were raised with him in the house. And so as we grew older, of course, we had questions and we wanted to figure out, where was he? Why was he not there? I mean, where are his baby girls? Where, where were we? We have an older half brother and an older sister. And we were the babies, and they had a chance to build that relationship with him because they were a little bit older,
Right.
and we didn't have it. So as we got older, we asked our mom questions, and there were probably times when maybe he was there, but I just don't remember him being there. And I'm gonna skip ahead, and then Errin will for sure jump in and fix everything, of course. But I got to a point in my life personally where I think we were in college. So at this point, we had grown up. We had went through elementary, middle school, high school, college, and I got to a point where I started dating my now husband, and I just said, God, I really want to have this relationship built because I want to have a successful marriage, and I didn't see that growing up. My husband and I both had dealt with that, and so I said, I think he had tried to reach out to us through my older sister, but we weren't in a place of, I wasn't in a place of receiving that, because I'm like, how can you leave us? How can you, I mean, why would you as a dad not want to be around your daughters? And so long story short, on my side is, I got to a point where, again, I wanted to try to develop that relationship, but I didn't know where he was. My mom had hired a private investigator at some point. We got in a car one year and drove. This was years ago, but we drove. All of us piled in a car. It was my mom. She had been remarried. So it was my stepdad, my mom, and the two of us and my older sister. We jumped in the car. At the time, of course, we didn't know where we were going. We drove all the way down to North Carolina to find him. She had hired a private investigator, said she found him, all this stuff. And we were young, so we didn't know what was going on. Drove all the way to North Carolina, never found him. I mean, we hours in the car, a whole weekend in the car. We never stayed at a hotel. We literally probably stopped to go to the bathroom to eat. And we got back in the car. We just kept driving. We just kept driving around. And we were like, where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
Never found him. Never found him. We drove back, stuck in a snowstorm. And that was it as far as we can remember. Go ahead and jump in, Errin, but that.
Yeah. As I was like reflecting for this time, I was trying to remember like my first memories. I remember seeing pictures of our 8th grade promotion ceremony. So he was there for that. So I have a picture of that. And I remember asking my mom, I believe we were about 12. And I don't even, how sometimes you don't have your parents, you're like, oh, I want to find them. I don't even recall getting to a place of really wanting that. I think once you get to a place where you've been hurt and lied to so many times, you're like, it's just not going to happen. Why even bother? And it's funny, even between my sister and I, as she stated, it's 4 of us all together. My brother is 13 years older than us. We have a sister who's 2 years older than us, and then it's us. I just got to a place where, we just dealt with it so differently. Even as my twin and I, we've talked so much about this, just how we all dealt with it. And my way was just kind of just shut everything out, shut everybody out. My twin was really close, still is. We're closer to my mom now, but she was really close to my mom. Like you could, from birth, she would sleep just next to my mom. And then my older sister was really close to my dad, which we had a whole kind of situation with that because I couldn't understand that, he's not here. How can you even, but I was the one that was kind of like, I'm good. I'm done. Like, I'm good. And I remember my mom saying, he's going to come in town, and it never happened. So I think I pretty much have just blocked out. I mean, even this week, I can't even remember anything before 12 of whether he came in, whether he did. I don't have any recollection. I have literally blocked it out, which is another thing I could possibly need to deal with. But it's like, do you bother? I don't know. But I remember we were 12. She said, he's coming in town, and he's coming to see you guys. I'm like, okay. And I remember saying, well, what does he look like? Am I going to remember him? Like, just literally blocks everything out. And then he did come in town that time. And, I think at that point I was a very snappy little thing at that point. Bless my mother's heart. Just very snappy. We'll put it snappy. And I remember him coming in town and saying, I think I snapped at my mom about something. And he's like, don't talk to your mom that way. And I was like, whoa, friend, whoa, what? After 12, 13 years, now just not the receptive type. So it's always been interesting how, we have all dealt with that loss, that separation. And then, like my sister said, we were about 2021. We both got to a place of just saying, hey, and it takes growing, it takes experience. Even as a mom now, I can see, because there were times I was upset with my mom, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, how could you not make this work? And now being married now, I can see, or now being a mom now, I can see things a little bit differently than I did, of course, when I was a child. But just having those conversations, speaking with my mom and hearing her side for your whole life, we took that time at about, I think we were about 2021, and we drove down to North Carolina when we finally knew exactly where he was in Charlotte. And I say all things respectfully out of my dad, because he has passed on, and we did mend that relationship, thank goodness. But we went down, we spoke with him, and we just sat at the table. And we were like, we just don't understand. Like, help us understand. We've heard mommy's side our whole life, but there's always two sides. There's three sides, really, because it's somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
He's going to put his side. She's going to have her, because it's hurt, it's feelings involved. So you're going to put your perspective out. But to really listen to his perspective was so healing, because he really was a genuinely nice guy. Like, he was a nice person. I said, I'm not going to cry, so I'm not going to.
Yes, but I got my tissue over here too. Just
listen, but so really just taking that time to sit with him and get just a little bit different perspective, a different point of view, was really healing, because once that time came again, he passed some years later. So we didn't, and then there's hurt with that, because now I finally found you, and now you're sick. And he spent a lot of those years sick, and then you deal with, do I go to his aid? Do I not? He wasn't there for me. Do I, just so many different things. But I think in the Black community as a whole, we have a hard time just talking about things, going to counseling about things, being open. But once you really take those steps, just to see how healing it really can be, and not necessarily for anybody else, but for yourself, that forgiving piece, that's like a huge, huge thing. How do you even begin to approach that step? But again, when I listened to what he said, where he was at that time, again, it was just very healing, because as much as you want this family unit, at that time, what would that really look like for us? The things that he was going through, he dealt with drugs and things like that. Had he stayed in the house, what would we experience? Had my mom moved us to Charlotte with him, what would we experience? And over it all, I would take my mom and my sisters without all of the extra any day. But, we had to grow to get to that place, because I didn't start there. And it's in healing, whether it's through death and things like that, it's a process. And so you have to acknowledge with it. And, ultimately what you're looking for in the end. And for me, it was just that healing. And now that he's passed, I'm okay in myself. My sister, we talk about all the time, like just how much better we are because we took that step and had that conversation with him, which is not easy. You know what I mean? So
that's very true.
I could really go all day, because, it really is a serious topic, but healing. Everybody needs a lot of healing, especially in the Black community. I'm telling you. So
yes, and it's funny because the first thing since you were talking about made me think about Richard Smallwood's song, "Healing." So, yeah. No, listen, I appreciate it, and we'll all talk back around at the end for some conversations, some questions. Cool. Well, what I want to do is I thank you both so much, Erika and Errin. Errin, right? Errin. All right, Errin. All right, bet. All right.
Oh my goodness, I used to correct it all the time. It's Errin,
really?
not Errin.
Exactly.
I'm done.
Oh gosh. All right. So we're gonna jump to I know you all didn't see her on the flyer, but I had my cousin Tina to jump on because she has such an interesting story as well too. So we met recently, of course, through Ancestry, and we're like further down the line. So Tina, tell your story, because yeah, they need to know what's up.
Oh, so my story, and I'm sorry I was late, guys. I was on another Zoom right before this, so I just want to apologize for actually my tardiness. But my story with DNA and finding family started in 2016. I was just doing the AncestryDNA test because I'm like, oh, I'm going to Africa. I need to know like what tribe I'm from. I'm about to be over there meeting my people. You know
what?
I mean, I was just being honest. I'm like, I'm about to go to Africa. I'm about to go to Ghana, wherever they say I'm from. I'm about to go over there and I'm about to find me some cousins. And, I took the test, and then later on, I would say maybe a year or so later, I had my dad take the test because, I don't know if you know about with DNA, but for women, we get 2 X chromosomes. So for my DNA, of course, when I did it, I was able to get like my mom's side, but I said, okay, I need to get my dad's side too. Like I need to get him to take the test so I can know where he's from, so I can go visit his people too.
Right.
Hello. So what happened was, we took the test, and his test came back, and it was just like a 5th cousin. I was just like, oh, what? So I was like, something's wrong. These people don't know what they're doing. This test, like, this is my dad. Like, what do you mean he's a 5th cousin? And I actually reached out and I called AncestryDNA, and it was just like, this, he's not your father, basically.
Sorry, Maury.
Yeah. So imagine finding this out. At the time, I probably was 37. So at 37 years old, finding out, the guy that you thought was your father is really a distant cousin, a distant relative. So of course, it was heartbreaking. And, just knowing the relationship, or, hearing about the relationship of him and my mom, and, them being teenagers back in the day, when I was conceived, there may have been some doubt. But in his mind, my mom was like, you know what, like we skipped school, I got pregnant, she's yours. And that was that. So, when I found out, it was just like, I just started thinking about my childhood and just all the things all the signs that I saw that was there, that something wasn't quite right. I don't look like them, but you know what? Maybe I look more like my mom's side of the family, things like that. Like I'm athletic. No one's really athletic here, but maybe, listen, maybe they just never, played sports, but it was just, certain characteristics that the man that I thought was my dad had that I couldn't see in myself. So again, I just attributed that to, maybe I just get a lot of who I am from my mom's side of the family. And so, I told him, and of course, after all that time, he's like, you're my daughter, you're my baby, whatever. It doesn't matter whether, I'm your biological father or not. And then, when I confronted my mom about it, we never really had a good relationship. I was mainly raised by my grandmother. And again, I should have known that may have been a sign, because she kind of left me with my grandmother to move with the man in New York that was my biological dad. And I was just never figured out, like, why did you never take me with you? I'm like, maybe you kind of knew, but didn't, it was like, well, let her get a little older, want to see what she looked like first, or we bring her around, the type of thing. So, when I confronted her about it, it was like, she automatically knew who the guy was, my biological father. But again, I don't know if she remembered his name completely since they were so young, or she just didn't want to tell me out of shame, because she did say, he was a married man at the time, and, he was much older than her. And, pretty much, you know, he was like, he's not leaving his wife type of situation. So fast forward, you know, a few years, I start getting all these hits on Ancestry, and you know, come to find out, I was actually friends with, well, I had matches with two of my, on my biological father's side, two of his half nieces for years. And, you know, one of his nieces gave me a name, but because my dad has so many siblings, and it's funny because we kind of have the same story, but anyway, she didn't really know the full or correct spelling of my dad's name. So I went on a wild goose hunt for about 2 years for a man with another name. And then finally, one of my other dad nieces, she matched with me. And, you know, when I told her my story, she automatically knew. She said, I know who your father is. I have this one uncle from the area where you say, you know, you were conceived, and he's the only uncle that lives there. And he has to be your father, you know. And she just, you know, I guess from my looks, you know, she had me send pictures of me and stuff. And she's like, you know, my uncle is your father. So as, you know, time went on, I just started figuring out ways to try to search this name. So of course, Facebook, I searched his name on Facebook. He's an older gentleman and he's really not on Facebook, but come to find out, his brother, his half brother and his half sister is on Facebook, and I was friends with them. Yeah.
It's a small world, like for real.
Because they were all from this small town, so they didn't know me. But you know, sometimes on Facebook, when you see somebody that has 100 of your common friends, they may say, let me add her. You know,
exactly.
Yeah. So they added me, and I did the search, and his name came up on one of his brother's pictures. And I say, hey, one of my dad's nieces in Florida was like, you know, this guy could be my dad. And, I gave my background, gave my mother's name. And immediately, like, it was no denial. He was like, yeah, he's like, I dated your mom for a few months. And he was like, well, she just disappeared. He was like, I don't know what happened. I just never saw her again. And I said, well, when she got pregnant, she left and she moved to Florida. So it was like, he just never even knew I existed all this time. And come to find out, I was his only daughter. So it was like, he was just so happy. He was telling everybody, like, I've started getting calls and texts from his siblings. I have 3 newfound brothers. So that's good, because the only sibling that I had was a younger brother, and he died back in 2001. So it was kind of great to be able to, gain 3 siblings, because it's, when you're like, when my mom only had 2 kids and I lost one sibling, it was almost like I was the only sibling out here, by myself. So it was definitely great to be able to gain siblings in that aspect. So, and just from that, honestly, I've become almost like a DNA expert. I'm a can you attest to that?
Oh, yes, I can. And I'm still trying to figure out, because like I was telling her yesterday or a couple days ago, like when I was on Jed Match, I saw that she came up on my dad's side too. I'm like, why are you on both sides of my family?
Because that's that small town.
Yeah.
So now I have definitely dedicated a lot of time. I've helped my biological father. I've helped his best friend, who's now my godfather, find his biological father side of family. I've helped one of my dad who raised me, not my biological father, but I've helped him find his biological family, and one of his cousins find her biological father. So in my spare time, I do what I can to help others, because on my journey, I've learned so much about DNA and segments of DNA and the relationship between DNA matches. So I've just it was painful finding out about that, but then eventually I have a newfound family now, so I'm definitely blessed about it. I just hate that when I hear them tell me, you would have been so spoiled. You was the only girl. I was like, it's not too late. I still look, I can still get a little I'm still getting a little child support. Put me in the will, put me on the, as a beneficiary.
No.
So yeah, that's my story. It's a whole lot involved with that, but that's pretty much gist of it. So I'm happy that I was able to find my father because I think with the twins, he had drug issues as well. So, with him being closer to 70, when I found him, I was really on a time clock because I was just like, I didn't know if he was going to still be alive. And then, when he told me his story, I have a much younger brother. And he said, thankfully, at 40, he had another child because he felt like that helped him reset his life and get off of drugs and everything. So he just felt like he wouldn't even be here to meet me if he never had my younger brother. So it's good. I've seen stories where people find their biological family and they're horrible people, like they don't want to deal with them. But my dad was, my biological father, he was shouting to the mountains. He was just, even though his wife, she was upset at first.
Of course.
And she told my brother, she was like, go run him over with the car.
Y'all gonna start my car.
He was like, yeah, I'm gonna need you to go run your daddy over. He got some kids out here I don't know about. So but now she's coming around and she'll text me and she said, well, maybe I'm the daughter she never had. So
we know it's funny because you said she's finding out that he had children that didn't know exist, but did he really know you existed? Did your mom tell him that she was pregnant, or did it was just I guess one of those flings. They met at the club, hooked up for a couple months, and again, I think even when my mom got pregnant, she probably wasn't even sure who the father was, but because my biological father was married and the guy I thought was my father, he ended up leaving her and marrying somebody else. So here she is, 18 and pregnant. So she ended up moving because she was living in South Carolina with her grandparents. So once she found out she was pregnant, she ended up moving back to Florida with my grandmother, her mother. Just curious, what part of South Carolina?
They are from Barnwell County, Bamberg County.
Yeah, that's some of my family too. Okay, all right. Yeah, interesting. So I'm just sort of curious. So whenever your mom found out that you found out the truth, how has that been?
Well, like I said, we really didn't have the greatest relationship anyway, and she wasn't nice about it. I'm just going to be honest. She was like, my aunt, her sister, was like, she was upset and saying, Tina, she's always poking around on that computer, type of thing. And it was just like, I asked her, she's like, well, I never thought you needed to know. And she was just, she was a real, I don't want to use a bad term about it, but she was, like, you don't need to know. And and you're not the only one out here that don't know who your father is. And, she was just not helpful about it. But the thing is, she said just enough that gave me enough clues to kind of go in the right direction with his age and everything. So
that's what happens when we're persistent.
I was persistent. Every match I got, I was on there hitting people up. Hey, who are your family?
Right.
So
I said, who your people?
Yeah, who your people is. So it's just a thing where you just gotta you can't give up. So it took me 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it took me 3 years.
Listen, no, I appreciate you for telling me that. And Tony, I want to have you share your story, which is somewhat similar. Actually, so Tony, just so you all know, for those who are watching, even those who are here, so I spoke to Tony a while back when I was trying to find my grandfather. I didn't really know how to approach it because it was such a sensitive topic, and we'll get to it once I share mine at the end. But it's so he was definitely somebody I confided in as well too. So Tony, I'm gonna let you take it away from here.
Thank you, Emorja. It's an honor to be here on this broadcast, hearing all of these stories. My ancestry journey started a couple of years ago. I was living in Houston, Texas, working at Texas Southern University as a visiting professor in the Department of Music. One day I got up to go to work and, was getting ready, putting on my bow tie, wear a bow tie every day. And I woke up and all of a sudden, a tremendous amount of grief settled in my spirit. Sitting at the sink, brushing my teeth, and it was just as real as somebody putting 50-pound weights on my back or something. And I sat down and I thought something physically was happening to me, but it wasn't. It was emotional and psychological. All of the grief and all of the hurt that and doubts that I had as a little boy about who my father was, it was like it came in as a tidal wave and just hit me in that moment. And it affected me physically. I could not go to work. I was overcome with grief. And the grief, the overwhelming part of that grief was the little boy in me overhearing the conversations of other people in the community saying, that ain't Wiley's son. That's not, yeah. When grown folks would be on the porch having grown folks conversation, and I would be in the ground playing in mud, eating mud, and they thought that I was playing in mud, eating in mud, but I was really listening to what they were saying on the porch. All of that stuff came back. All of that stuff just weighed on, instantly in that moment. And I went to sleep and woke up, reached for the computer, went to the Ancestry.com website, ordered the kit. And I was like, I want to find out. I didn't tell any of my siblings, nobody knew I was searching or wanted to search, but I started on my own. The kit came, I did, whatever I needed to do, spin a little thing, sent it back in. That was in November. In January, I was in New York City, getting ready to, I was in the barbershop and the guy had lathered my beard up. He was getting ready to trim me with the straight razor. And the buzz hit my phone, and the notification said, your ancestry results have come in. I instantly got out of the barber's chair with the cape still around me, the foam on my face, and I went outside and I pressed the button, and there it was. There it was. And the way that I was able to discern that the man that raised me was not my biological father was, and all of you who have done Ancestry know when you get your ancestry results, the people who have the largest amount of your DNA are to the top, arise to the top. And the person that was the very first person that was listed as a first cousin was a person I had never seen before. And Ancestry was telling me, 99.9%, we think this person is your first cousin. And so I called a few of my first cousins on my mom's side and asked them to look at their ancestry to see if this person showed up on theirs. And he didn't. Because if he showed up on theirs, that means he was on my mom's. That was right. This person was attached to the man who was my biological father. So through Ancestry, I went back in and he shaved me, finished all the day. And then I ran to Starbucks right down the street and I sat down on my phone and I sent this person, a text message, not knowing if I was going to ever hear back from him, and told him, my name is Tony. This is my story. I told him my story. And I just kind of sat there, just kind of taking in the moment that, I'm actually getting ready to maybe possibly find out who this man is. And 10 minutes later, the guy that I he texts me back and made the connection. And I was able to identify the fact that his dad and my biological father were brothers. And so that led me to asking some more questions and getting on the phone and asking neighbors, folks who helped raise me, folks who already knew the story.
Because neighbors know the truth.
Yeah. And everybody in Harnett County knew except for me. Everybody. It was a thing of where there was this code of conduct, silent code of conduct, unspoken code of conduct. I don't tell your family business if you don't tell mine, because there was evidence of stuff that was going on in all of the families. Everybody had dirt. And so, you just don't talk about it unless, somebody in the family gives you the authority or permission to do it. And so when I was calling people and asking, it was like, you know what, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to, but I eventually found out. Okay. So I came home to confront my mother and have a conversation with her. And being very honest, it did not go well. Because very similar to Tina, she did not plan on me finding out. And when I did, it was like I had taken a secret from her that she was probably going to take to her grave. And I stole that from her without her permission. It did not go well. But before I left to come back to Houston, Texas, I was able to meet my biological father, who all these years, I was 47 years old at the time, 47 years old, a 47-year-old secret. And I tell people that, I felt in the moment, part of the hurt felt like, in school where you would, they would take that, kick me on the back of your sign, on the back of that sign on the back of you, and you not knowing that it's back there. I felt like somebody had placed that sign on the back of me, and people had been kicking me for 47 years. But I was able to meet him during that trip that I had come home to confront my mom. And it was a wonderful meeting. I looked just like him. I remember getting out of the car. We met at the Zaxby's,
which is
in
my
Harnett
favorite
County.
restaurant.
Yeah, we met at the Zaxby's that night. And I remember getting out of the car and he was standing there. And when I turned to walk towards the restaurant, I was looking at myself. I was looking at an exact replication of what I'm going to look like when I get his age. And it was beautiful. It was alarming. It was scary. It was all of that, all at the same time. And so we embraced in the parking lot and then went in, ordered food, and we talked for 2 or 3 hours. And later I was able to meet my siblings on his side. I have 2 sisters and a brother that looks just like me.
Wow.
One of my sisters, the oldest one, her name is Teresa. She was excited to meet me at first, and when she learned about me, but the other sister was not ready at the time. Mm-hmm. It took her a year after she found out. And at Christmas a year ago, I was able to meet her. And I have 2 twin nieces that she gave birth to. Mm. And so it's been interesting, and it's been, like I said, wonderful and painful all at the same time. And it's getting better. Yeah. I will say that it really is. But I'm excited to know that when my story came out, I was very, very public about it.
Yeah.
And I did that for me and my healing, and to inspire other people who may have a question or may have that part of that grief inside of them, and they need to know. And I'm still getting inbox messages from people that are saying, your story inspired me to take the test, and I found this out.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful to be here to tell that story, and hopefully one day I'm going to write about it.
You should. And I'm just sort of curious. So why do you think your sister wasn't ready to meet you?
Well, I think part of it had to do with she was very, very close to her mom, and is very close to her mom.
Okay.
And so, and I'm just telling the truth that everybody already knows.
Yeah.
My mom was married to a man, and my dad was married to his now wife. They were both married to different people when I was conceived. And so I think a lot of that was just pain that and feeling betrayed, and feeling like that my dad had betrayed her mother. Yeah. And so over time, we were able to talk about it and come together at Christmas, Christmas a year ago. Yeah. I was not only able to meet the sister that was hesitant at first, but I was able to meet my stepmom. And she was at that time ready to meet me and talk to me too. So we're now, enjoying each other and getting to know one another, and in conversation and community is wonderful.
Yeah, I love it. And so I want you to, can you do me a favor and tell that story about the funeral when you were sharing with me, like one day you were at a funeral.
Yeah. One of the things that my dad told me when he was just kind of catching me up on what happened and everything, he just kind of reminded me of different times in my younger life when we were in the same room, but he couldn't tell me he was my dad. Yeah. Everybody in the room knew he was my dad, except for me. Yeah. And one was a particular funeral of my aunt, my mom's sister, which was my biological father's next door neighbor. They lived close together. And so my dad came to the funeral because my aunt that was deceased was his next door neighbor. And, as I walk in with the family, I walked right past him, and he was sitting on the end of the pew, of the pew. So I literally walked past him, and he saw me, and he told me he wanted to reach out and hug me, but he couldn't. He couldn't. He couldn't. So
oh man, I think that's one of the hardest things, because we're always so focused on keeping the secret.
Yeah.
But the secret is so much more important than the truth. And with the truth, you have to experience that discomfort, and you have to experience. I guess you have to relive the past. And people would much rather just let the past overrule the opportunity for someone to get to know their family, their bloodline. Oh man. Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
Yeah. Daniel, I'm gonna let you go ahead.
All right. So this is a lot. I guess I should probably start from the very, very beginning. And I guess the precursor for this is I've been holding myself together pretty well this entire time. So hopefully I will continue to. But my discovery and situation is very fresh, as in about 3 weeks ago. So, so it's very fresh. And actually, Emorja, I didn't share this with you. Errin and Erika know, but I actually met my father for the first time in person yesterday for lunch. So I'll add that in once we get to all of that. But so it's interesting, Tony, what you were saying about that moment, that first moment you see them, I still haven't fully processed that. It's been about 27 hours ago. So at this point, I'm still processing all of it. But so I've grown up all of my life, at least the part where you can really remember things without the presence of my father. I was very blessed to have very strong father figures in my life. So that presence wasn't really absent. Just that my biological father was not there. My godfather was very instrumental in my upbringing. My grandfather was as well. And I've been blessed to have some pretty incredible mentors, including my voice teacher from my undergraduate experience at Morgan State, who I call my dad. But there was always that void, because when I would go home, just me and my mom. And, I always would think, do I look like him? Everyone would always say I look like my mom. I'm like, but I know I got to look like him somewhat, how do I look like him? Because this part of me doesn't look like her, and this part doesn't, but maybe this part does. And I just never knew. And I only have one picture of him, one picture of he and I when I was a baby. And that's, and I'll get to the importance of that one picture in a second, but that's all I knew. And it was a question, it was something that bothered me when I was younger. I guess now maybe I won't have as hard of a time, but maybe I will. Like, it really didn't rear its ugly head until like Father's Day. Father's Day was always very, very difficult for me. I actually hated Father's Day. Even with celebrating with my grandfather and my godfather and those people, I just hated Father's Day. But otherwise, I kind of managed. I suppressed really how I felt about it. If I didn't think about wanting to reach out or finding him until my senior year of high school. And, that's your first like really big graduation, and, all the important folk are there. And I had a conversation with my godmom, who just passed away on Wednesday. We'll try to keep it together. But I had a conversation with her, and I told her that I really wanted my father to be there. I hadn't shared it with my mom or my grandmother, but I confided in her about it. She had taken me to lunch, and we had a whole very intense conversation about it, because she wanted to make sure that I was ready. And I told her, I said, yeah, I do. I really want him to be at my graduation. So she started compiling things together, any information that she had. She had a conversation with my mom without me about it, just to see if my mom was comfortable and ready for that process. My mom gave her as many details as possible as from what she could remember. Because my mom and my father, they didn't date for very long. They weren't really even dating, to be honest. It was just kind of a, you young and you having fun type situation. And so my mom gave my godmom as many details as she could. My father had written 3 letters to my mom and I when I was 2 or 3 at the time, because he was in and out. He didn't leave until I was about 4. And so I still have those letters. My grandmother or my mother, somebody decided to keep them. So they used to be in a photo album along with the one picture of my father and I. And it took me a very long time. It wasn't until that, when we started that process, that I actually peeled, the old photo albums, where it starts browning on the sides. And so I, carefully opened it up and took all of the, the letters out and took the picture out. And that was kind of really my first time reading them. Again, I was senior in high school. You're dealing with a lot of transition at that time. And we just started. I read through the letters and constantly kept looking at the picture. And my godmom made copies of everything. And she hired a private investigator and went through the whole process, and it didn't work out my senior year of high school. So graduation went, came and went, and so there was some disappointment because I was really hoping that that would happen, and I went off to school. And within that first year of me going off to school, my godmom gave me a call, and she said, "I think we found him." So of course, heart beating all fast, and I'm thinking, okay, this is the moment. All right, we got him. Nope, wasn't him. Happened again. Then we found him. Nope, wasn't him. That happened in the process of my first year of college. My mom was going through some health challenges, lost her sight, and I lost my closest great uncle at the time, because my mom is the only child, and at least on my grandmother's side. And so I'm very close to my grandmother's siblings. And so my great uncle passed, and I had just gotten these two, we think we found him, but we didn't. And my mom was going through health challenges. It was a lot. So I decided to take off from school. I think it was kind of like the start of depression almost. It weighed on me very heavy, and I didn't really share it with a lot of people. It was just something I kind of carried. And essentially I told my godmom, I was just like, I think we should just stop. So I gave up essentially for a few years. And she never really dropped it. She kept a folder in her office, which, like I said, she just passed away, but it's literally still sitting with all of her other things. It was very important to her to make sure that this happened for me. And so, I gave up. It was a couple years went past, and, she said, "Daniel," she said, "I still have the letters here and the picture, and, just let me know when you're ready." She said, "I can't afford to do the private investigator anymore." She said, "But we can find another way." And I kept telling her no, and I said, "It's fine. I'll figure it out at some other point." But Father's Day was still hard. Holidays had become hard. I was finishing up undergrad, and I was like, I started getting that feeling of, okay, well, I'm an only child. I knew I was his first. I knew I had an older sister, but I knew I was his first boy. I didn't know he had any other children. We'll get to that. And I, I'm like, he should be here. He should see me walk across that stage with my degree. Like, we missed high school graduation. We can do this. We can make this up. So once I finally knew when I was going to graduate, because I had an extended undergraduate experience, I knew, it's coming up. So let's pick this back up. And unfortunately, we didn't have any new information. We literally were working with the same stuff that we had before. The PI situation hadn't worked out. They really didn't discover anything. We went through the process for a few months and dropped it again. So then I moved to New York for 2.5, almost 3 years, working on my master's. And it was very intense for me once I moved, and I'm not quite sure why, but the entire time when I lived in New York City, it was extremely difficult for me. So once graduation came again, my master's graduation, my mom and my grandmother weren't able to be there. They both have health challenges and some financial challenges. And I just couldn't afford to get them up there. So literally my friends came, few of my friends that lived in New York were at my graduation. I didn't have my mom and my grandmother there. And my godmom at the time, she was trying to come, but she was having some back issues. And so, the thing that kept replaying in my head was, well, if my father was here, he would be here. If they couldn't come, he would be here. Like, that's just, because all I could keep replaying also was what I read in those letters. And in the letters, it seemed like he wanted to do this. But I grew up my entire life understanding that he told my mom that he wasn't ready for another kid because he wasn't really handling everything well with my older sister. So that was the reasoning that I knew my entire life for him walking out. And graduation again came and went. But this time I was determined. I said, no, we're going to pick this back up and we're going to see this to the end. And I had a conversation with my godmom, and she was very supportive. And my mom had taken my dad to court for child support when I was however old I was, very young, because again, he left when I was almost 4, around 4. And I contacted the court system here in Maryland, Baltimore City Circuit Court. I contacted the Maryland State Archives in Annapolis. And I mean, I was just Facebook, Instagram. I mean, anything you could think of, I was just like on Google, just going at it, you know, trying to be my own PI. And again, nothing came up. So I just kind of left it alone. And I said, oh, God, you know, I guess it's just not, this isn't what you have for me. You're protecting me from this for whatever reason. And so I kind of said, God, well, I'm just going to accept it. And I didn't really accept it. I said I did, but I didn't. And so last August, I decided to do the ancestry test. But I wasn't working at the time. You know, COVID had wiped some things out, and I had just started therapy last July, the week before my birthday. Just going through a lot of different things, and I said I need to get into therapy. I need to start dealing with some stuff, because a lot of everything that I was dealing with, contending with, all boiled down to things that were related to my father and him not being there. And my therapist, you know, I talked to her about it, and she said, be still. That was the homework she gave me for the week. She said, be still, because I was conflicted. And she said, just let God speak to you. She said, be still, and you'll know. And in so many ways, I got several different confirmations that week. And so I moved on it. And one of my very good friends, Professor Vinvoy Brown, who may be watching this, paid for my ancestry test, because I didn't have the money at the time. And I ended up doing the test. And I was extremely nervous, waiting for the results. The test was supposed to come back the results were supposed to come December the 11th. The day of, they said, oh, you got to redo your test. I guess I didn't put enough of the solution in or whatever. Something happened. So I said, not again. This can't be happening again. So I decided, I said, whatever, just send me the test. I called them back. I was livid. I was terrible. I mean, I had to pray and repent about it, but I was horrible to the representative I spoke on the phone, because I was just so upset. I'm like, this can't be happening again. Like, this is not fair. And I sat here and I cried. I mean, cried my eyes out. And the test came again, did it. All right. So a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago at this point, 3 weeks and 1 day, my results came in. I was cooking, and just like Tony said, that notification popped up, and I'm like, all right, here we go. So I finished cooking, sat down, ate my food, and I decided I was going to take it one step at a time. And so I looked at, you know, the results from what the first and second cousins, and there were quite a few. There were about 7. And everyone that resembled my father, because my father's white, were all different last names. So I'm like, okay, well, this doesn't help. This now complicates things a bit more, because now I got to like really, really dig. And it was a rack of, I mean, it's still there. It's a rack of 3rd and 4th cousins that I haven't even gotten a chance to even touch yet. But I know those are from my mom's side. And some connections to my grandfather and stuff. So I'm finding out stuff about that too. It's not just on my father's side, but I haven't even gotten to my mother's stuff. But I started looking through that first and second cousins list, and I sent 3 of them, one of which is a friend of mine on Facebook now, my cousin Dawn, and I sent her and two other cousins and a message. And on Ancestry now, you can see when they read your message. So I saw that all 3 of them had read my message, and there was no response. So I got very nervous. I'm like, oh crap, did I do something wrong? Like, what's going on? What's happening? And then I was sitting there and I said, okay, well, God, you really got to lead me about this. I prayed, and I was sitting there and I said, well, I saw they had public, part of their family trees were public. They didn't have a lot of people listed on them. And so I just started going through those 3 cousins that I contacted, start looking at their public family trees. And I saw there was a common denominator, which now I guess she's my great grandmother and great grandfather, or great either way. So those two people were the common denominator on all three family trees, but the last name was different. And so I said, well, okay, let me go to Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook. So I typed in, I knew that my father, always knew that my father's name was William Daniel Rich. And that was named after my father. That's what my mom knew. That's what she was told. So I went to Facebook and typed in William and the last name. And I won't say the last name just, to respect his privacy, but typed in this new last name that I discovered that I was assuming was somehow connected, since these are my first and second cousins. And surely he didn't come up with the name William in that last name. So then I said, okay, well, everybody called him Big Danny, called me Little Danny growing up. I said, so maybe let's just try Danny. So I put Danny and I put his last name. And two profiles came up. One was someone very young, and then it was another picture with a little boy and a little girl. And as soon as I saw the picture, when I looked at the little boy, I saw myself. And I sat there for a few minutes and I clicked on it. And when you're not friends with someone and don't have a lot of mutual friends, there are a lot of details don't appear on the page just due to privacy settings. But there were 3 featured photos, and they were all my father. And as soon as I saw it, I knew it was him because of the one picture that I have of he and I. I'm like, well, this is him. I pulled up my phone and I had the picture right next to the computer screen. I'm like, yeah, that's him. There's no doubt about this. So then I was like, well, obviously these 2 kids are my siblings. And so I sent him a message, and he responded within like the hour. He was like, well, he said, if you, basically he said, we'll talk the next day. He said, just let me talk to everybody else first. He said, and then I'll give you a call. So I sent him my phone number, and he called me the next day, 3 weeks ago today. And we talked on the phone for almost about an hour and a half. Pretty lengthy conversation. He was getting ready to go to work and everything. And so that's why we didn't meet in person that first time. But we talked for about a good hour and a half, and he, it was awkward at first. There was a little bit of silence at the beginning. I answered the phone and said hello. I knew it had to be him because of the zip code, the area code, and said hello. He said hello, kind of sounded like me a little bit. And I said, who's this? He says, Danny. And I said, okay. And then it was silence. And said, okay, well, essentially, I've been looking for you for a while. I said, it's been about 16 years now that I've been looking for you. I've been wondering where you've been my entire life. And I said, I've heard my mom's side of the story. I know what she's told me. And so essentially, I just want to know if that was true. I want to know your side of the story. Why weren't you there? And I told him, I said, I got some advice from my godfather. I said, give it to me straight. I'll be 30 this year. I'm 29 years old. I can handle it. Whatever it was, be honest with me. And he laid it out for me. It was exactly what he had told my mom. He wasn't ready for another kid. He was 21, 22. My mom was 18, going on 19. Again, they weren't in a relationship. It was kind of just a fling, and not a one-time fling, but it was a fling. And he just wasn't ready, and he was running the streets and involved with drug activity and things like that. And he just wasn't on the up and up. And he explained to me that he was having some family issues as well, which I gauged from those letters. Because when I started this process again, I went back and read the letters, and I read them over and over and over again. I even read them to my mom, and I had a conversation with her before I did the ancestry test, because I told her, I said, I think I'm going to find him this time. And I told her, I said, but I want us to both have an understanding of where he was before this happens. And when I reread those letters, now that I'm older and I've read them, I said, well, I can't imagine being 21, 22, not really having any family support, being involved in all kinds of whatever. And I got another kid. This is my second kid in a matter of 2 years. And I don't have a way to support or help. And I said, I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it's okay. But, now it gives me a better understanding of where he possibly was. And surely enough, everything that I already thought, he just confirmed it. And of course, I found out my last name is, I don't want to say it's wrong because it's not wrong, it's my name. But, we don't have the same last name. I found out that I knew about my older sister. She's 2 years older than me. I knew about her already. I just never knew how to get in contact with her. I never knew what her last name was or anything. But then I found out that I have 2 younger brothers and a younger sister. So there are 5 of us. My older sister is going to be 32 this year. I'll be 30. Then both of my brothers are 18 and my younger sister is 11. And so I grew up my entire life wanting siblings. And my mom, I was the only child. My mom didn't have any other kids. So now, I'm walking into an experience where, I have an older sister and now I have to learn how to be a big brother, which is exciting.
Now.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's very exciting and I'm down for it. But my father, I will say in the last 3 weeks, still very early, but I could tell that he's remorseful. That he essentially he apologized without saying I'm sorry. And I don't really know if I'd have been in a place to accept an I'm sorry, at least not right now. But I can definitely tell he's remorseful. And, he even admitted when we talked that first time, he said, I don't know how I could have been there for you or what I could have done. He said, but I just should have. And I appreciated that. I think that was enough for me in that moment. And so we've talked maybe 3 or 4 times each week. We've been talking pretty consistently this month. And he connected me with my older sister a few days later. And then she ended up connecting me with one of my younger brothers because they're really close. And everybody just kind of knew about me within that first week, which was cool. His wife is very understanding, very accepting. She went through the same thing with her father. And discovered a brother late and all of that. So she understands. And she's a very sweet woman. And all of my siblings have been really cool. They're excited. I'm excited. So I haven't had to deal with any of that, at least not yet. So I think we're good. We just have to get to know each other and build those relationships, which is exciting. And so I check in with my siblings. They check in with me. We text, whatever. It's been cool. And then I knew that I wanted to meet up with him soon, but I knew that he was waiting on me. He wanted to see if I was ready for that. And so I took the step and asked him, I said, well, are you free, on Sunday, to go to lunch? And he just texted back and said, okay, what time? So, okay. All right. That's a step. So I told him, let's meet at 1:30. Cool. You picked the place. He picked the place. And we met up. And yeah, that first moment, I went back to my car. He was coming around the corner or whatever. I went back to my car to get chapstick. And he literally parked right next to me. Funny thing, we drive the same car. He got out the car and, he was just smiling. He was like, he said, what's up, D? I'm like, hey, we dapped each other up, hugged, went in and ate. We ended up eating the same thing. We sat there for about an hour and a half, talked for the entire hour and a half. There was no awkward silence or pauses or anything like that. And then, he said, you want to go to the house and meet the 3 amigos? Because so the 2 kids that were in the picture, my siblings, Jayden and Devin, and they're children from his wife. So they all live together. But my older sister, she lives in Florida. And then my other younger brother, he lives here in Baltimore with me. But he's on the other side of town. So he and I are going to meet up for lunch probably this week. But so I went to the house and met his wife and met my 2 younger siblings that were there. And this is all yesterday. So I'm still like in a space because of it. Yeah. But it went well. We played Uno and talked, and my little sister showed me her gerbils, and it was pretty cool. Actually, all of my siblings have different personalities, and it's very interesting. And it was good to finally sit down and eat and break bread with my father. Yeah. I will say that all of this has been bittersweet because, like I said, my godmom passed this past Wednesday, and she was very instrumental in this process. But I praise God that she, one thing that she had mentioned to me a few months ago was she was older, but she said, Daniel, she said, I asked God that before I leave this earth, that you would see your father. And I praise God that 2 weeks ago, before she passed, that she got to see that happen. And she, my godmother didn't cry a lot, at least not in front of people. But that conversation we had on the phone when I told her I found him, she just cried. Well, we cried together, really. But yeah, so it's all very fresh. I spent the first week and a half just every morning, I just woke up and cried. During the day, it's like I'm a teacher, so in between my classes, I just started crying. I mean, it was like uncontrollable. And I still have my moments with that. But it's all a process, very fresh. I don't know what lies ahead, but I can tell that it seems like we're all game. It's just a matter of us learning each other.
God gave her you for a reason.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I appreciate that. And for those who don't know, Daniel's actually the reason why I'm doing this. When he told me the story a few weeks ago, I was like, "Hey, how would you feel, if we did just an episode, just talked about it?" Because we all share stories about finding someone, and it's very important people that we're finding. It's not like a seventh cousin, but these are people whose DNA that we have. So yeah, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate you, bro. Okay, so I'll tell my story. So back in, take some notes. Back in 2009, I was in Fort Lauderdale, and which is where I was born. I was in Fort Lauderdale, and my mom, she told me that she ended up. Well, she told me that she had another father. That Samuel Roberson was not her biological father. So I carry my step grandfather's last name. I didn't know this till later. So we ended up, I had just graduated, but we ended up going to see this man. We went to his church. He didn't know we were there, but it was me, my mom, and our cousin. So I'm up in the front because, listen, I like to get to the front of the church for the fire at. And there we know in the back just chilling. So I remember I was there, and Samuel Roberson, he died in November 91. I was born in August 91, so I didn't get a chance to really know him. So when I got there that Sunday, I remember walking in. Music was going on, people were shouting and carrying on. It was like a scene from The Color Purple, y'all. And so whenever I saw him, I was like, "That's my grandfather," but he has no idea that I'm in the same room as him. So I remember my mom was saying during church, whenever they had walked around for offering, she said that it's like he looked at her as if he knew, but nothing happened. So, and of course my mom, there was always speculation. So it's Tony's like your story. Everybody knew except the right person. But at one point when she was younger, she found out that was her father because one day I guess she saw him out somewhere, and my mom was like, "That's a handsome man." And then my aunt said, "You don't know, do you?" And she said, "What?" She said, "That's your daddy." And so, so it's crazy. And then my mom was like, "Oh, never mind." So it's funny because it's like when we don't know these things, we can easily make a mistake. So moving forward. After that Sunday, in 2009, we went home, and what I ended up doing was there was a musician there who I didn't really know him like that, but I said, "Hey," I said, "what do you know about this particular person?" I'll just say P. So I said, "What do you know about P?" And do you know about any children he may have? And just give me sort of a rundown of everything. And I said, "Okay." I said, "Cool." So then, between 2009 and 2014, there was just a gap. I didn't have any ancestry stuff. I didn't know about AncestryDNA. All I had was just what was the word on the street. So in 2014, I reached out to would be my first cousin, JP, and I said, "Hey," I said, "Do you know P, the grandfather?" And he was like, "Yeah." Like, "Who are you?" I said, "Well," I started naming other people who he may know. He didn't know them. I had limited information. He had limited information, so it's like we couldn't make it work. So between January 19, 2014, and September 17, 2019, we had like some sporadic conversation, just trying to get to know my cousin, or so I think. but we ended up like sort of cutting our conversation, not because of anything bad. We just stopped talking because we didn't have enough evidence. So so November 28th, 2018, I was on Ancestry and somebody on there popped up with the same last name. I said, huh. I said, so is it true that this man is my grandfather? Because mind you, there was also somebody in my family who was gun ho at saying that man is not your grandfather. That man is not your father, which was, you know, my grandma. She, like, nah. So I was like, well, let me just do some digging and see. So I was asking this guy some questions, and he had limited information. So there was a separation between the lower part of Florida because he's in Boston, Massachusetts, and he had no information as well either. He was like a third or fourth cousin. But what happened was he said, well, I don't know all the details. He said, but what I'll do is let me send the link to our family because they have like a family website of everybody from the person who came from Africa, first slave, all of that stuff. So I was looking, and he had a lot of Lovitts in his in the family tree. So Lovitts and Knights, and there were some Robersons. So I was like, interesting. I said, well, maybe I am a Roberson. I'm like, I don't know because this all happened in Sylvania, Georgia, which is where Samuel Roberson grew up as well too, just as much as Granddaddy P grew up. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I got the wrong information. So anyway, so I left it alone after a while, and I was like, nah. I said, I got to keep digging. I said maybe just coincidental, because you know, of course, with small communities, they just share a name. People get married to each other, and it's like, well, who's who? So, so that went on for a little while, and then on April 24th, 2020, LaCassie, she showed up as a first cousin who had the same last name. I said, okay. I said, that's the answer I'm looking for. So then we were talking to each other on Facebook for a little bit. And I'm like, yo, I said, you are my first cousin. And so she was looking for her father's side as well. And it's so interesting because I'm like, why would our family keep these secrets? It hurts because it's like we're trying to build a family tree. And we can't just build a family tree with people who, you know, we grew up with. We need some blood. And there's nothing wrong with knowing your biological family. And there's nothing wrong with having a family that you consider family, those who grew up with, those who you have experiences that you shared. So, you know, so that went on for a little bit. And so, you know, her and I, you know, I went to Fort Lauderdale, and I met her last year. I believe it was during the summer. I met her, and I was like, hey, I said, how did I get a chance to, you know, meet Grandpa? And I know the story's gonna be sort of odd, like you came out of nowhere. And I think it was one of those things where you just didn't expect someone to find out. It was one of those, once again, one of those things that go to the grave with you. So, so then, you know, she was like, well, we can, you know, set up something. And I was like, okay, I was in a rush during the summer. So I said, well, I'll come back later in the year and we can make something happen. You know, so I reached out to another family member to try to get something established, uh, because he was traveling to Fort Lauderdale, for Christmas. So I was down there for Christmas. And I was like, listen, I was like, look, I'm ready to go. I said, so what can we do to make it happen? Can I talk to him, you know, before Christmas? Maybe talk to him the night of Christmas. But as we were planning things, and so I noticed the conversation kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter. When I was like, hey, can we do something? The delays were getting much longer. So I was like, okay. I said, I came all the way from Indiana to Florida to meet this man. I don't live 45 minutes away, nor do I live around the corner. But I want to make this happen. And I really wonder, and I think it's also a way of maybe protecting, you know, maybe the mother, because maybe she doesn't know. I don't know. And I totally understand that. I get that. But also at the end of the day, the people who are suffering are those who can't get in touch with the people who actually carry the DNA. Like I am a part of your family, whether you know it or not. And so, needless to say, so right now, you know, that's still something that's being worked out, but we're getting one step closer each time. I didn't get a chance to meet him like I wanted to, but I can say that he knows who I am, from a distance. But soon enough, we're going to make that happen. And I hate that we have to wait till like years later when we're older to get the technology to find out these things. But with God as my witness, this has to happen before anybody passes away. So that's on my maternal my mom's father's side. Now, on my dad's side, so March 20th, 2019, I reached out to my cousin, Jacayla King, and she was like third or fourth cousin. so I sent her like a message. I said, hey, Jacayla, I said, I see we're related. And I'm always getting these third or fourth cousins. And it's hard to match. I'm like, don't nobody know who I am? I ain't got no last name. So, um, so it's interesting because, she didn't really respond too much. I guess she thought I was just a stranger. But so eventually between March 20th, 2019 and January 9th, 2021, I hit her up again. I was like, hey, I said, I found out how we are related. My grandfather was your grandfather's brother. And so then we started talking some more. And the reason I found out is because I found out who my grandfather was during Christmas. I went to go see my grandma Christine, who was my dad's mom. And, we were just talking and I said, Grandma, I'm really trying to figure out like some more about the family tree. She said, oh, well, your grandfather is Yulee Williams. I said, oh, okay, cool. So I started researching. I went on Ancestry and there he was. I was like, wow. So then all these people kept popping up as well too. Williams from Midville, Georgia. Williams here, there. And my grandfather had several brothers, several siblings actually, but there's only two that are left. There's my Uncle Ike and there's my Uncle David, and they both live in Savannah. I called my Uncle Ike because Jacayla gave me their phone number, and he was so happy. He was like, we've been looking for you. He's like, especially whenever, your grandfather passed away in 95, we tried to look for your dad, but we couldn't find him. And I said, well, you probably couldn't find him because he was in prison. So my dad and I, we would write letters a lot. And his penmanship, beautiful penmanship. And that's something I can say that I got from him that I appreciate. I found out that I also had siblings from him. So I had an older sister who has, children. I have an older brother who has children. They're like 45, I believe, and they're like 43. I'm probably getting those wrong. Here I am, 29. So Papa was a Rolling Stone. But at the end of the day, I'm here. And it's one of those things. It's like, wow, like I have siblings. I grew up as an only child in Phoenix Springs, Florida. My mom and I, very close to my mom. She might be watching it now. But she definitely played a strong part in my life. And so right now, we're just putting all the pieces together. Now, I want to go to my mom's. So it's my grandmother's side. So recently, my cousin Vanessa Jones on my dad's mom's side, she is like a genealogist, so she's been helping me out with a lot. And one day, actually, it was on January 22nd. We were doing some research, and I got stuck at one point. And I said, Vanessa, I need your help. And she was like, all right, what's up? So we got stuck on the reeds. I have a lot of reeds. I have a lot of greens in my family out in the South Carolina area. And so on one of the censuses, there was Darkest Walker. And then there was another name, which was Rose Ann. And they also stayed in the same area. So on that census, we saw that Rose Ann was mulatto. And so we saw that they had the same number. And if you understand the census, you can see what areas. So for example, say it's 132. And all these people were in the same home. So she said, well, what I think you want to look at is the last name Varner. So before she was a Walker, she was a Varner, Rose Ann Varner. And so when I was doing some research, it popped up. Rose Ann Varner was a slave to William Varner. So my fourth great grandmother ended up having children with the slave master. And it was about 12 children. So y'all, I got so many white people in my family. I've been looking at this tree. I'm like, Lord Jesus. But it's funny because as I was putting some stuff together, I'm like, oh, so our noses sort of look alike. Mama always said, you got a white man's nose. I'm like, all right, Mama. But I came across something which is interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I found that the Varners, so there was Rose Ann Varner Walker. She ended up giving birth to William Walker. And William Walker there's a town in Charleston, South Carolina called Varnertown. And the town was named after them. And this Indian tribe, Wassamasaw tribe, they settled there. And I'm in communication now with the University of South Carolina because they have some information that they can give me. So I'm hopefully get that up really soon. But I came across this recently, and I want to read this before we end this live. And this is the will of William Varner. And it says this. It says, in the state of South Carolina, in the name of God, amen. I, William L. Varner of Charleston District, Considering the uncertainty of this mortal life and being of sound mind and memory, blessed be the name of Almighty God for the same. Do make and declare this my last will and testament. In manner form following, first, I resign my soul into the hands of Almighty God, hoping and believing in a remission of my sins by the merit and mediation of Jesus Christ, and my body I commit to the earth to be buried at the discretion of my executor hereinafter to be named, and my worldly estate I give and devise the same as follows. First, I give and bequeath unto my sister Christina Elizabeth Smith the following slaves, namely Rose and her children, Jane, David, Margaret, William, Hannah, Eliza, Lavina, and Marion. Also, old Hannah and my Negro man Chance, together with the future increase of females of the same during the term of her natural life and after her death. I give and bequeath above the named slaves to be children of my above sister, Christina Elizabeth Smith, to be equally divided between said children, share and share alike to them, and for their own use and benefit forever. I also give and bequeath unto my said sister Christina E. Smith my entire crop of provisions, the crop of provisions in the house and the crop of provisions in the field, as the case may be in both cases. And then, I'm sort of going to skip a few things, but, this, like the other day I was doing some research and I found out that, Peter F. Varner just sort of randomly popped up. So Peter F. Varner, that's another in the area. And it speaks about, the swamp they said about, which is Wasamaasa Swamp. So, and this took place on the 22nd day of March, 1848. So, it's so amazing to me, like what happens whenever you start digging for your family history, like what comes out of that. And there's so much, and of course, we've cried, we've shared some experiences. There is hurt, there's some astonishment, but there's also relief. And I don't think people, for those who aren't doing it, and for those people who are okay with just knowing just enough, I don't think they'll fully understand the relief that we get once we get answers. So yeah, and I know we're going to end this soon, but before we go, I just have a couple of questions that anybody can sort of jump in and ask. I wonder, why is it that the children are always looking for the fathers? Are there any instances where the fathers are looking for their children? Yeah, anybody can jump in.
So that was one part that I left out. I asked my father, I said, well, I'll be 30 this year. Did you ever think about me? Did you ever attempt to look? Yeah. And the reasoning was, and maybe this is part of understanding that, is he said, well, I thought about it, but the years just kept adding on. As the years kept adding on, he said, I just felt like you wouldn't want me there. Mm. And I'm like, I told him, said, no, I would appreciate you coming at any time. Yeah. So I think there's that regret, that focus on making that choice. Something happens on their end, I think, that prevents them from taking that step. In some instances, I know every instance is different, but yeah. I think that's what happened on my end.
Yeah, I think one thing, and I think Daniel and Errin all talked about this recently, is just we're scared, but they're probably just as scared. And I think when I sat down with my dad and really understood that he wanted to take that step, but the fear of rejection was just as big as the fear that we have of rejection. Like, okay, I'm scared that he's not going to want to be a part of my life, when it's honestly, I've seen a lot of situations where it was the reverse, where the parent was scared that there's no way this child is going to accept me after all these years. There's no way. And they had the fear of regret. So it's one of those things where, we have other people in our family that are dealing with the same thing, and we're trying to encourage them. I know it's a scary thing. I know you don't know what the outcome is, but it's no different than if you go another year and you never just take the step, right? You never know. And if it turns out where they don't want to be a part, at least you took that step to get some type of closure. Yeah. Right. Because right now you're in the unknown. You're fearing the unknown. Yeah. Where it's just I encourage people to just get out and do it, because life is so short, and if you've lived through 2020, that life is short, and it's so much closure, that even though I wish my dad was still alive, I have so many more questions that I want to ask him. But I know that I did what I could in the time that we did have together. And I pray that anybody that is in that situation would just, even if you're the child,
Yeah.
it might just take you. And I know three of us on this line, it took us four or
Yeah.
five, I mean, all of us, it
Yeah.
took us making that step that is going to impact so many other people in generations to come. We have children, right? We have siblings, we have all these people that are connected to us.
Yeah.
That if we could just take that one step, so many other people might do it too.
Yeah. So true. So true.
And we're actually in a place where we have the resources now where
Yes.
years ago. But the kind of piece that Mr. Robertson, you tapped on was it was something you said, and I was like, yes, oh, gosh, I gotta remember what it was. It'll come back to me.
Mm.
But just using those resources now. It's the fact that the secret piece, like why, and I don't know if it's the fear again of people's secrets getting out and what the retaliation will be because of it, but essentially it's the child that's suffering.
Yes.
um, as the mom, as the dad, whoever, whatever your situation was at that time, the child had no control over that. And so it's like you put yourself above your child who is hurting, who's lost, who's confused, who's empty, who's got all these things, who turn to so many different things to try to fill this void. We get involved, even myself, there's things I've got involved in to fill voids, that maybe
Yeah.
I wouldn't have if, as the mom or the dad, I don't know. I can't remember everything that my mom did to try to find my dad. It goes back to my dad has like 5 or 6 siblings. Like
Yeah.
none of you reached out to say,
Yeah.
hey, these babies are out here,
Yeah.
no adult in these situations was like, you know what, this is bigger than myself, this is bigger than you, it's
Yeah.
about the child. And I think that's the biggest thing that I wish people will take a hold to, that you got to forget about you at this point and just worry about your child and
Yeah.
how they're going to pass these generational curses, and I shouldn't say quote, but
Yeah.
generational curses and things that they're passing on to their
Exactly.
next generation.
Yeah.
Just because we as the adult never came together and say, you know what, it's about the child,
Yeah.
and so if anybody doesn't hear anything else, talk to
Yeah.
your child. Like, where's your child at? How are they feeling?
Yeah.
Put your feelings aside for a moment and just say, it's about them. And we don't have to be friends,
Yeah.
but as the father, you need to be in the child's life. As the mom, you need to be in the child's life, if it's just to
Yes.
save that
Yes.
one child. So
Yes. No,
that's all I
you're
have to say
exactly
about
right.
that.
No, I appreciate that. And why does this happen so much in the black community? Um, I don't know if anybody like has any answers to that. I don't know if we go back to slavery and being taken away from family. We just got used to it, or where does it begin?
I think I think it's a sense of shame too, because I think for what a lot of us, especially from the South, it's like, you're supposed to be married. It's frowned upon,
Yeah.
if you're sleeping around or you're having kids out of wedlock. And like I said, I just know in my case, with my mom, she was just she just had a lot of pride about herself. It was just like, yeah, I have 2 kids. And at the time, like, it was like, well, even though me and my husband wasn't married at the time, at least both of my kids are with my husband, and of course, later on, we found out that wasn't the case. And then, to speak with what Dr. McNeil had said, I didn't touch on it, but I found out that there were some people in the community that knew that I had a different father. And I just found that out in casual conversation. So it was just like, oh, yeah, we knew, like, oh, I was just like, well, nobody told me, nobody told the man that, was your family member. Like, it was like one of the guy I thought was my dad. It was his family member that knew. And I was just like, well, and no one bothered to, to tell. Like they just was okay with keeping that secret. Cause like you said, I don't want to tell nobody else's dirt because they might tell my dirt, because we probably all ran together, to the clubs and was doing this and doing that. And I don't want to say anything because I don't want my secrets to get out.
Yeah.
So
it's very true. Richard, Tony, you want to say something?
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh.
For me, it's the shame of it
Yeah.
all. It's
Yeah.
pride. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you all so much. And for those who are watching, would you all have any advice to give to them? You can just go.
Now, I would just encourage people to dive in and do the work. It's like all of the panelists have confirmed, it can be very beautiful and very life changing and very meaningful, but at the same time, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And you have to be ready to accept all that comes with it, all the
Yes.
good, all the bad, all the disappointments, all the surprises, both the
Yes.
good surprises and not so good surprises.
Yeah.
And also be patient with people and be and respect where people are when they find out.
Yeah.
And don't try to force yourself into anybody's life that's not ready to have a place for you.
Yeah.
And just see it as it is and move on. But I encourage you, if you even guessing or thinking about it, have doubts or wonderings, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Listen, everybody, thank you so much for my panelists for just allowing yourselves to tell your story and just be vulnerable. And to everybody who's watching, I pray that you enjoyed this conversation tonight. Just let it I let it go where it needed to go. And hopefully you all can feel encouraged to do some digging, especially if you want to know more about your family as well. Don't take no for an answer from your family, but you take the test. You get the answers. Because a lot of times we'll stick with that no just to make the other person feel good about themselves, but yet we're the ones that are hurting, and we're always going to be curious. But curiosity won't kill this cat. Listen, we're gonna get the answers. I know this is not planned at all, but Tony, could you close this out in prayer, really quick?
I can.
Thank you.
God above, thank you so much for this community of brothers and sisters who have gathered to share a portion of their journeys, and how you have made ways for each of them, including myself, and those that have joined this broadcast. Thank you for Emorja and the ministry that you have given him. And we ask that you would continue to inspire him and give him the courage and wisdom that he needs to continue to do the work that you have assigned him. Bless each and every family, each and every story. We ask that this broadcast be received as a form of worship, God.
Yes, Lord.
And that you will look upon this conversation and bless it. And those that have listened, those that have witnessed and sat under each and every story that's told, God, we hope that it will prick some heart, change some life, inspire a life. God, give somebody the courage to run on and see what the end will be. We love you and we count it done in Jesus' name, and we thank you for this opportunity. Amen.
Amen. All right, listen, everybody, y'all have a good one, and make sure to catch us on Thursday. We'll be talking about Black men's mental health, and we have the flyer that'll be coming up in the next 15 minutes. So check you all later. Have a good one.
Good night, everybody.